Hello, this is Louise and welcome. This video shows you how to prepare a Word file for an editor. I'm going to show you 12 tips that will help make your Word document editor ready. So one thing I'd like to point out before I start is that I work on a PC in Word 2016. Now, a few of the slides do show controls on Word's ribbon, so if you work on a Mac or you have an older version of Word, the ribbon might look a little different. Right, so let's get cracking. So first of all, bear in mind that interior book design is something that should be carried out after your book's been edited, not before. If you're creating a printed book, post-design page proofs are perfect for a proofreader because they can check not only your spelling, punctuation and grammar, but also the layout. Now you can see an example of post-design page proofs in the PDF on screen now. Now there's nothing too clever about the design here, though you can still see how decisions have been made on how the headings and some of the other text elements are styled. The text colour has also been amended to a charcoal grey. Page proofs are either hard copy or PDF versions of the book that are laid out exactly as they will appear in the final printed version. And here you can see what the raw text file looks like. This is what an editor will be working on in Microsoft Word. And as you can see on screen, the text is black and there are no boxes or tints, just simple heading styles. With design page proofs, you and your proofreader will be looking at what the reader would see if they were to walk into a bookshop, pull the title off the shelf and browse through the pages, almost. The proofreader's job is to ensure that any final errors and layout problems have been attended to before the book's printed. Now, for a comprehensive overview of what needs to be attended to when proofreading design page proofs, if you want to, you can download my copy of my proofreading checklist. The link's in the notes below the video here on YouTube. If you're asking a professional editor to work on the raw text of your book, the 12 recommendations that I'm going to cover in the rest of the video will help you to create an editor-friendly file. And that's good news for you. It means less work for you, not more, because you're not having to design anything yet. So tip 1 concerns your file format. Most professional fiction editors work in Microsoft Word. That's because, honestly, despite the odd glitch, it's still the best word processing software on the planet. It has a range of really excellent onboard tools that help your editor style the various elements of your text consistently, and it helps us quickly locate potential problems that might need fixing. Word's brilliant because it's compatible with a whole host of macros that complement the editor's brain and eye. And that means that we can add an extra level of quality control to the edit efficiently. So even if you've written your book in a different program, for example, Scrivener or Google Docs or Apple Pages, place the text in a Word file before you send it to your editor. You'll get a much better quality book edit, I promise you. Tip 2 is about the number of files you send your editor. So unless you've agreed with your book editor to work serially, and by that I mean on a chapter by chapter basis, create a single master file that contains the full text of your novel. If you send them 75 separate chapters, all they'll do is combine them into one file after they finish weeping with frustration. Editors want to ensure that your book is consistent, for example, that the spelling of character names doesn't change. There are Word plugins that can help them identify problems like this efficiently, but they're only effective if the editor is working in a single file. The same applies to ensuring that the various elements of your text are formatted consistently. So, for example, it's conventional for the first paragraph in a chapter or a section to be not indented, and your editor could use Word's styles palette to define the appearance of a first paragraph. And once the style has been set, it's a case of applying it to every relevant paragraph in the file. If you don't give them a master file to work with, they'll have to create a new style for each one of your 75 chapters or import that style for the same. So fiction editors love master files. All editors love master files, and they will love you if that's what you provide them with. Tip 3 is all about fonts. You might have decided to use an unconventional font for your book interior, and you're perfectly entitled to use any font you choose. At editing stage though, spare a thought for your editor's eyes. On screen now you can see a range of fonts, all of which might well have a place in your design novel. When it comes to editing stage though, stick to something simple like Times New Roman. That's the one at the bottom of the on-screen sample with all the love hearts by it. And choose a font size like 14. Times New Roman is a serif font, which means it's really easy on the eye. All those little curves and tails on the letters help to ground an editor's eye on the page and spot when a word's not right. The less your editor struggles to read the text, the better the quality of their work. For tip 4, let's talk about the colours of your page and the font. I recommend you use black text on a white page. Again, it's all about readability. The white text on coloured blocks, like what I've got showing on screen now, they certainly stand out and the contrast is visually appealing. But for editing purposes, it's a challenge. A couple of years ago, I was asked to copy edit a fabulous book for an indie author. The pages were black and the text was pink. Yeah, I know. It was different. And I understood why he wanted to do this from a design perspective. But the first thing I asked him, no, I didn't ask, I begged, was for permission to change the file's appearance to something more conventional. And he agreed to save the quirky colourway for the design stage, and I was immensely grateful. And so was he, because I'd have had to increase my price because my editing speed would have been much slower if we'd left things as they were. Tip 5 is about paragraphs. If you open any novel on your bookshelf, you're likely to see a text layout something like what's showing on screen now. And you can see how most of the paragraphs are indented. Now, I recommend you don't do this using the tab key. Instead, use words ribbon to create proper indents. And in case you don't know how to do this, I'll show you how. Here's a screenshot from the Word 2016 ribbon. So to create a proper indent, you want to click on the top chevron where the arrow's pointing and then drag it to the right. And that will pull the first line of the text in any paragraph to the right too. Now you can set up various text styles in Word, including one for an indented paragraph. And that means you'll get uniformity all the way through. I've created a separate video called Self-Editing Your Fiction in Word, How to Use Styles, and there's a link to it in the notes below the video on YouTube, and that will show you how to do this. So for tip 6, let's talk about spacing. At line and copy editing stage, don't worry about how many pages your text covers. Instead, give your editor a file with the line space so that the text is easy to read. Setting the line spacing at 1.25 or 1.5 works really well for a font size of 12 or 14. The line spacing function can be located by right-clicking on your text and then selecting Paragraph. A window will open, like the one on screen now, so make sure you're in the Indents and Spacing tab and then amend the line spacing field accordingly. Tip 7 is about chapter headings. Your editor will adore you if you assign your chapter headings with one of Word's heading styles. On screen to the left, you can see how they appear in Word's ribbon. Now you can modify the style so that it automatically starts on a fresh page too. To do this, right-click on the heading style, select Modify, then Format, then Paragraph, and a window will open like the one on the right-hand side of the screen. Make sure you're in the Line and Page Breaks tab, and then check the Page Break Before box. And that will set your headings up so that they always appear on new pages. So why is this useful? Well, it means you won't need to hit the return button 23 plus times to get the cursor to the top of the next page when you begin a new chapter. Plus, you'll provide your editor with a really quick way of ensuring that all the chapters are listed chronologically because they'll appear in a list in Word's navigation menu. So on screen now, you can see an example of this in one of my sample files. All the headers are clearly shown and I can see easily that the numbering has gone all right and I know exactly what I need to do and where I need to go to fix it. I want to talk now about page numbers. In a raw text work of fiction, there's no need for page numbers or other headers and footers. Word records the page number in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen of a PC, and that's what an editor will refer to if they need to direct your attention to a specific page. If you plan to upload a later version of your file for ebook creation, your page numbers will need to be removed anyway. And if you're printing, you'll want to have page numbers, but design stage is where they should be put in, not editing stage. All you'll be doing is creating work for yourself that has to be undone. Tip 9 is about section breaks. I recommend introducing 3 asterisks to indicate a section break. And you can change them at design stage, of course, but they're handy at editing stage because your editor can see that you intend for there to be a section break. Now you could just have a line space, but sometimes a writer accidentally hits the return button twice, and your editor will have to spend time working out whether the break is intended rather than focusing on the flow of your text and any errors that need correcting. So I think it's much better to actually give a specific indication to your editor that you want a section break to be in place. Tip 10 is about pictures and images. If your editor needs to check copy against images and their captions, consider placing these in a separate file. Images, especially high resolution ones, will increase the size of your book file massively, and they'll slow down the refreshing process when the editor saves. And your editor will save once every few seconds. That sounds bonkers, doesn't it? But the editor who doesn't save regularly is the editor who finds they've lost a precious minimum half hour's worth of editing because there was a power cut or a hurricane or the oven exploded or whatever. Plus, when they come to email your edited file full of high res images back to you, it will be so huge that they'll have to use an external cloud-based transfer service. And the file will take an hour to load, unless like me, they have rubbish broadband speed, in which case it will take 2 or 3 hours. They'll do the transfer in the evening so that it doesn't slow them down while they're working, meaning their teenager will start moaning and giving them that look because Netflix is buffering or Minecraft won't load or something equally devastating. Please, I beg you, save us. Honestly, I've been there. My kid gets really grumpy. Another more serious thing to mention is that amendments, deletions and additions to the text will cause your carefully placed images to shift into spaces that you didn't intend. It's much better to leave image placement to interior design stage. It'll save you and your editor time and tears. Tip 11 is not to waste your time creating manual tables of contents in a Word file prior to copy editing. Why? Because there's a good chance that a chunk of your page numbers and some of the chapter titles will be wrong by the time your editor has finished. Of course, you can pay them to fix these, but that could add an extra hour's work minimum onto your bill. Worse, you'll still be wasting your money because when the book's interior is designed, everything will change again. I know this because when I proofread for publishers, and that means I'm working on designed page proofs that have been edited multiple times and designed by a professional interior formatter, the table of contents is always messed up, somehow or other. So sort out your table of contents before you do your final design, not at copy editing stage. It'll save you money, I promise you. And finally, tip 12, the manual index. I'm adding this one on for non-fiction writers, just in case you're watching. If the page numbers against the table of contents get messed up during copy editing, the damage to an index is nothing short of catastrophic. It's not just the page numbers, but the indexed entries too. Spellings might change, so might compound hyphenation. Some key terms will have been removed or changed, others will have been added. Indexing should come after proofreading, ideally, certainly not at copy editing stage. Right, that's it. I hope you found that useful. These are just suggestions. They're not book law, editing law, any kind of law. However, your editor will love you if you make life easier for them. Not because they're lazy, but because they want to focus on making your narrative and your dialogue sing rather than formatting text so that it's readable. There's absolutely a time and place for great interior design, but pre-editing stage is not it. Save yourself the bother and keep it simple. You can find more raw text tidy up tips in my free booklet, The Author's Proofreading Companion. It's available on my website and the link's in the notes below the video here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye for now.